this truth. But still they make psychological and supra-psychological experiments on the constitution of man and the psychology of groups, psychology of religions, parties, and the various methods of combinations of individuals. And they succeed in bringing out a new pattern and present it to the awareness of the century, so that at least 25% of the thinkers of the century begin to respond, to add to the new group of world servers. Everyone who experiments the new pattern upon himself will present himself as one more individual, a contribution to the already existing number of thinkers and workers. Like this, the numbers increase gradually, so that the new pattern of work comes into existence. This is the work of the masters. They live away from the world, not physically and not mentally, but in a strange dimension of consciousness. They live away from us. Physically, they live amidst us. They will be mixing up with us, sharing everything good and bad with us. But the only peculiarity is they are so close with us that they know us. We do not know them. That is one strange thing with the masters. He can be a passenger in the train by your side, but to you he means nothing. To him you means everything. All the passengers in the train mean everything to him. To any one of the other passengers, he is nothing, because all the other passengers are also nothing. Unless they belong to the group of their relatives, or wife, or husband, or children, or father, or mother, or brother, or a friend, or a member of his own political party, or belonging to his own religion or sect. Unless there is such a relationship, others are nothing in our view. But to the masters, all of us are everything to them. This is a second thing which we can never understand about the masters. That is, the value they attribute to our existence is something which we can never understand, simply because we attribute no value to our fellow beings at all. Unless we have the temperament to attribute some value to the people around us, we cannot have the look of a master. For this reason, they know us always, and sometimes we may deceive ourselves that we know them. In many of the cities of the Occident, there are people who claim that they are receiving communications from Master Moria or Kuthumi late in the nights. They take a pen and a paper, they close their eyes and invoke the Master from above. And they begin to write some nonsense on the paper, and the Moria or Kuthumi they know is nothing but their own mind along with the wishful thinking of many things. We have many messages from the masters through the common people of the Occident. You need not be surprised if Krishnamacharya publishes volumes and claims that they are the dictations of Moria, Kuthumi or Jwalpur. I know such people in the Occident, and early in the morning they get up and telephone to their friends to say, you are expected to eat 10 tomatoes a day. Because Master Moria has dictated to me last night that I should prescribe this medicine for you. I personally know such wonderful people. One nice lady has telephoned late in the midnight to one of her friends, and the friend woke up from deep sleep and received the telephone. Then the good lady says, "Hello, good news. In your previous birth you were Isaac Newton." And the fellow was stunned and he received a shock from which he could not recover until a month. Because he was really afraid if he were Isaac Newton. If it were to be true, it would have been very, very inconvenient to the poor fellow. But luckily enough, once again he could discover that he was not Isaac Newton, but he was himself, the husband of his wife. So, real masters are different. They have no such nasty things to do. They have their work to do. They are working to change the temporary values of man, to bring the humanity into the recollection of the real permanent values. And now we will go into a network of masters and how it is going on. When we understand that the masters are living in secrecy, sometimes we can imagine that they are in forests or caves. It is never the case. They live in a place like Geneva or Lausanne or New York or London, and they have their own network for the benefit of mankind, just as the politicians have their network for the evil things of mankind, negative. Just as the politician has the negative network to conduct the black magic of self-aggrandization and to protect his own position in the political party. That is the negative way of network worked out by the politicians. But for the humanity, the masters frame the same type of network. And since they have no interest in anything for themselves, they don't mind living incognito. And if they suggest good thoughts to any one of their disciples, they want that the disciple exercises these thoughts upon the society in the name of the disciple or some other friend, because they never bother about the ownership or authorship of these ideas. Fundamentally, these masters work upon 2 or 3 items of science. The one is the science, the law of evolution. They know how mankind came into existence after the many changes of the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. And they know all the stages of the human intellectual evolution. And they know the future of the maturity of humanity, that the intellectual human being evolves into a spiritual human being, so that he may understand that he need not own or possess anything, and he lives only without owning anything. But we have many fears about our personal living. We have our signatures in the bank and the assurance of our salaries and the arrangements of the government for the income of individuals. We have the promises of the insurance and the pension, and we make life complicated because we have our own foolish fears about our present and future. The masters know that these fears are baseless, and also understand that fear is an animal instinct that is being preserved by the human animal. And man has magnified the instinct of fear into so many complexes, which we call money, savings, and interest in money, all such things. They live free from all things. They eat food after they have done something to the society. And the expenditure for themselves is far much less than what they pay to the world beforehand. So they are never indebted to anyone, and all the humanity is indebted to them. This confidence is due to their understanding of human evolution and a perfect knowledge of how the human being behaves and into what stages he evolves. They know the relationship between the individual and the society. They know the knowledge of how the races are working on this earth, how the consciousness, group consciousness of each race and nation is evolving in toto, so that it may contribute through centuries to work as a supplementation for perfection. For example, if the white races are having some strong points and some weak points, and if the black races are having different strong points and different weak points, the group evolution of the two different races tries to make blends of the two different races so that a third and a new race evolves. And the strong points of the two races are blended in the new third race. And the masters know how these things take place in nature. And then they are able to know their own work in the matter. They understand the whole plan of the planetary activity of this earth and the planetary consciousness is of this earth, how it is distributed among the many races and how each race is trying to contribute to fulfill the defects, to fill up the defects of the other race. Every action of the masters is aimed at this concept of perfection, and the existence of every master is supplementary to the work of the other masters. The daily routine and activity is also fabricated in such a way that it is always supplementary to the good work others do. That's the reason why we don't find any discussions among the masters, because discussions lead into burning away of time and lifespan and some headache due to hypertension. And sometimes there will be the retracing of consciousness into the animal levels whenever we grow emotional about our discussions. When we grow emotional, there is no wonder if we behave like buffaloes or monkeys or donkeys, simply because we are evolved from all those animal forms and the tendencies of those animals still exist in our blood. And simply because we do not know the art of distilling ourselves from those tendencies, you don't find any discussions among masters. If at all there are books given by the masters, they are in the form of suggestions, injunctions and instructions that are positive and practical and verified whenever practiced. So they are not scholarly discourses, but they are the same truths presented to suit our taste, because they are not at all enamored of discovering something new. In the activity of the universe, there is nothing new except the cyclic activity of the evolution. And if we try to imagine something new, it becomes our own creation and not the creation of nature. For example, I discover a new type of multiplication table, and for the first time I publish it quite different from the existing multiplication table. You can find in it that 5 into 6 is equal to 49, because everything is new. The result is you will throw that in fire, because it is in no way useful. The masters know these facts. They take us as disciples when the time comes. And if we look to them, it is a waste of energy and time. Often people meditate upon masters, close their doors so that other people may not enter in, and those who are having membership only should enter inside, and then begin to meditate upon the masters and they begin to speak with the masters, that is themselves. And then they begin to receive impressions and messages. And they wait and wait if the masters can be seen, just as they are seen by Madame Blavatsky or Alice A. Bailey. But the truth is different. The masters can never be found because we wait for them. It is the same reason because we cannot find them. Because they never expect us to wait. They expect us to do something. Something which is really useful to our neighbors. And if we begin to study books to know how the life after death will be, the masters will be laughing whenever they think of us. Because they are concerned with life before death, not life after death. It is only the dreamers and the lazy fellows that are concerned with life after death. For the simple reason they want to escape themselves away from their duties towards the fellow men. They consider all these things as the hysteria of the weak human beings. And they begin to look at us when we begin to look at people around us. And as long as we look to them, they never look to us. When we look to a person who is weaker than ourselves, who is less capabilities in his finances than ourselves, and who is less intelligent than ourselves, and who is having a lesser degree of health than ourselves, and who expects a little assistance from us. When we begin to look to them and begin to think what we can do for them, then immediately the masters begin to look at us, tap one of their disciples and show that there is a fellow who is starting his real career. And the disciple, in his turn, has many disciples for him. And he taps one of his disciples and finds out that there is a fellow who begins to live. Like this, the junior-most disciple will be tapped to take notice of us. And he takes notice of our existence. He observes for some time if we continue the same attitude or not. Even though we help our fellow beings for 30 years or 40 years, if we stop suddenly someday and think, what is it? What is the benefit I get by doing this? And the humanity remained faithless and thankless even though I have done much to the humanity. Suppose we begin to think like this. Then the disciples smile to themselves and say that here is a fruit which is eaten by a worm in the middle of its development. Better luck next birth. Then we will die as a worm-eaten fruit. And once again, nature presents us a new body in the form of the next birth and allows us to take the same experiment once again to test if we can get through the examination. Like the university student who fails the examination, we will be permitted to appear for the same examinations again and again until we pass the test. Then after 10 or 15 births, we will come to a stage when we begin to do the work for the fellow beings without looking to any recognition and without having any disappointment. Then they begin to assist us directly. While we are sleeping, they will establish a little telepathic contact, and they tune our mind to their minds. Just as a radio set is tuned to the radio station, then we begin to receive the music. For a long time we don't know where from we are receiving it, because we do not know the existence of the radio station. For some time we think that we are making the music, And we believe that all the glorious thoughts we are expressing are coming from our petty mind. And the disciples who are guiding us, they will be smiling and laughing at us, because they too had behaved long ago. They were having all the weaknesses of the humanity just as we are having now. And they begin to train us. And then when we are fully absorbed about the humanity, when it is a necessity, one of the masters may appear to us, not because we are so great, but because the work is so urgent. The reason for a master to appear is not our greatness, but the need of the moment. Because our greatness is only our psychological weakness. Our usefulness is the truth of it, and not our greatness. Goodness should replace greatness in our mind, and usefulness should replace wonder and surprise. Then only our minds will be tuned to the minds of the masters. In such a way, the masters are training and recruiting new students into their school. And all these masters have only one school, because there is no physical school or a building where they recruit us into the school and give us boarding and lodging. If they provide such a school,
fournissait une telle école,
we know how we behave, because we know how we are behaving in our residential hostels and colleges. Therefore, by the term school, they do not mean a school on the physical plane. Every one of us is expected to be in his own house, in his own office, in his own business, but stop to work for himself and do the same work for the society. If such a change were to take place really in us, then we will be recruited as students in the school of the masters. Since that time onwards, our security will be in the hands of the masters, and the program of our personal and individual life will be in their hands. We cannot plan for ourselves, and whenever we plan, it will be a miserable failure, because things will be otherwise. If I plan to stay for 7 years at Geneva, the police comes and reminds me, my dear fellow, your visa is going to expire within 2 days, and will you please turn your face towards India? So he says. Every one of us will be wonderfully disappointed whenever we begin to plan for ourselves. After once we are recruited into the school of any one of the masters, so it is better not to get recruited, so that we may enjoy all the personal and individual facilities and eat and drink and dance as much as we wish. And then only, when we feel that it is enough for us, it is better if we are recruited after that. This is one danger with the masters. And they never spare us, they never excuse us when once we are recruited. Because they never spare themselves and they never excuse themselves against any fault. At the same time, they are benevolent. They know what love is. And if we think that love is sex, they do not know at all what love is. If we think that our relationship is love and our emotion is love, they do not know such things. In their view, love is something different. Love is what makes you better, and it is not what is liked by you. Often we confuse pity with love. According to the masters, pity is the negative and destructive form of love which eats the person himself, and love is the positive form of pity which helps and sustains others without eating away the person himself. This is the difference between the values of the masters and we the human beings. And finally, they know the continuity of their work in the plan in two different ways. One is they can hand over their work to the next generation most successfully, and they can see that the work is continued through many, many generations, through centuries and thousands of years.